a nice conversation after we've seen the show. So if everyone can go ahead and do that, I assume you all know how. Go ahead and turn your cameras off. Thank you.
Hey, Sarah, which view do we use?
And I'm going to spotlight Deb, so it should make it happen automatically. How's that?
Perfect.
Oh, perfect.
Thank you.
Cool. And then you'll see whoever is speaking, and that'll be me and Jen and Jeremy. For the collectors in the room, if you have any questions about pricing or availability, go ahead and send a chat to Jillian. She is answering those questions. And we'll go ahead and get started. I just wanted to say a huge thank you to all of the artists who made work for this exhibition. Jeremy Bert, Sarah Blood, Kelsey Fernkopf, Brian Haddock, Cedar Mannon and Leah Yarnan Hall, Amy Lemaire, Richard Marquis, Megan Stelgis, and Fred Sheeta. Thank you guys so much. It has been an absolute joy to have this work in the gallery as we're approaching winter and going through this incredibly stressful time. Having this light in the gallery has really brought a ton of joy into our lives, and I think brought a ton of joy into the lives of the people who have come in to see the show. So thank you all. And a extra special thank you to Jen Elek for curating this beautiful show and proposing this exhibition. Jen, you and Jeremy have been incredible partners to work with on this show. And I know I personally have felt like I have learned a huge amount over the last month. And I'm really excited that we get to do this walkthrough and share your perspective, your thoughts with all of the folks who are in the room tonight. So thanks, you guys. It's really been a special experience. I'm going to go ahead and just start with a question for Jen. Jen, can you tell us what inspired you to do this exhibition? Why neon? Why these artists? What brought you here?
Sure. Thanks, Sarah. I'd also like to express my gratitude to you for hosting the show and all the artists for their extraordinary efforts putting this together. The inspiration for the show really came from me noticing the explosion of popularity of neon in the art world. Growing up, occasionally I'd run into neon in museums in New York by artists like Bruce Nauman, but it wasn't really until more recently that we've seen it in so many different galleries, just almost becoming omnipresent. And it made me thoughtful about the people who use neon in their work as a primary medium. I use neon in my work, but I'm really a designer of neon, and a lot of artists who are using it now are designing neon and working with it that way. And Jeremy, when we moved to Seattle in 1995, got a job at Western Neon doing sign electrician work, and he still works in the industry today. And so that put us in contact with the Pacific Northwest neon community. And I noticed that, gosh, there were so many practicing artists in neon that don't often get an opportunity to show their work. And I've just seen so many beautiful shows at Traver and really valued their space, and thought, gosh, wouldn't that be great to really highlight artists who do use it as a primary medium. That being said, there are a few artists, like Dick Marquis, for example, who doesn't normally work with neon, but he is a mixed media artist. But I think his work really helps anchor the show historically, to show artists who began working with mixed media and embracing neon with glass. And one of the artists in particular in the show that helped inspire it was Kelsey Fernkopf in the scale aspect of the show. When I'm thinking about a group show, I really wanted the artists to be able to continue working on the individual expressions that they were currently working on without too much constraints curatorially. So I thought it would be interesting to just bring a scale aspect in it. And Kelsey in the past has made very small miniature work. And the last couple years, he started to make this large scale work out of one tube. And I thought, well, that would be a great way to show neon, that it can be very intimate and small, but it also is, you know, larger scale, like you probably encounter it more often out in the world in signage.
Hey, Deb, can you turn to your right a bit? So this is Jeremy's piece, and Jen, I know you have a lot of neon in your life with Jeremy, and I'm sure that this had to have inspired this exhibition to some degree or another. Jeremy, do you mind telling us a little bit about this piece?
Um,
It's such a wonderful story.
yeah, this about 9 months ago, I had no idea what I was going to do for this show, and I kept working in my studio, and eventually arrived at this simple process of joining randomly selected colors of glass in little segments, and I've really been fortunate to arrive at a simple studio practice, repetitive process that results in what I think is visually a very dynamic piece, but it also seems to reference diversity in the all the multitude of colors in the piece, and so it's really been a joy for me to for this simple repetitive process in my studio practice to produce such a visually stimulating and socially relevant piece. And it's turned out it's a very it's a very calming piece when you're standing in front of it, which is not really a characteristic that's typically associated with neon, but there's something about it that is just really mesmerizing when you're standing directly in front of it. So yeah, it's been a lot of fun to
One of
arrive.
the, sorry to interrupt you, one of the things that I love about this piece, which is unfortunately a little bit hard to see in the video here, is the way that each of the little segments of neon is joined together, and it really reveals the handmade quality of the work and the sort of the artist's hand, the
Yeah,
attention to each individual joint. And it's something that I think is not seen a lot in neon, which is, you know,
yeah,
used for signage and is in sort of our urban landscape and in industry. And this piece has such a soft quality to it. It's really a special part of
yeah.
this artwork, I think.
Yeah, a neon bender typically is trying to make it look perfect, make it look like machine, it was made by a machine or something. But the crazy thing is that every single neon tube out there was made by hand, and that's one of the unique qualities of the material, is that it is made by hand. And I think that is part of the reason why it's enjoying this new popularity, because people are realizing increasingly the value of something that is made by hand. And I think that these days it's too easy to make something perfect. And I think that increasingly there's value seen in something that shows the human touch, the human imperfections of creation. So yeah, definitely. It reads as round, but when you get up close to it, you can see the little wobbles and wiggles that that happen just because of the way I handle the glass.
It sort of parallels what the process that we call in the hot shop as in Calmo, when you're joining two different colors together. There's different viscosities. The glass will move a little bit different if it's a stiffer color, like a red or a yellow versus a blue. And Jeremy put those colors right together. So it's interesting when he's talking about the structure of the whole piece really depends on the strength of the union of the piece that's right next to each other. I really like to think about it in those terms. And Jeremy's work in general has a strong dedication to reuse and repurposing. He really enjoys using recycled signage. And this piece is actually part of that process still, in that when he began it, a lot of the tubes that he was using were left over from other projects, and they were just smaller pieces that couldn't be really used on their own. So even in this piece, as new as it is, it still sort of has that dedication to upcycling and recycling.
I think one of the other things that is really represented in Jeremy's piece and throughout the show is this sort of the community that comes together around neon.
Yeah.
And Deb, maybe you can head over to Cedar and Leah's piece, because I think that so represents that.
I love this work. We probably met Cedar and Leah right about the time, well, we met Cedar first. Jeremy was working with Cedar at Western Neon in the 90s, and they met there, and then Cedar went on to work at Light Bright Neon in New York, which is a really well-known neon studio that works with a lot of contemporary artists when they want to use neon. And after working there for years, he moved back out to the Northwest and established Noble Neon. And what I love about this work is it is playing with the construct of the signage industry, but utilizing it towards a very different end, in that this at first may look like a tarot card reading sign, but it has a very different message, and the message is quite literal for what they promote in their shop. They hire young people and train them up, and so they're actively training new people in the trade, which I really appreciate, because there are a lot of older folks that are super skilled benders that are sort of aging out. So even when they were installing, they had a young apprentice there actively teaching them what to do, which I really admire and appreciate their efforts there. They're great. They're great artists as well as great mentors in neon.
I love the play on words in this piece too. The light.
It is true, and the title "Sleight of Hand" too. I really like it.
Nice. Yeah, what a wonderful message. Just working together and teamwork and what's possible through that. Yeah.
And there are other people in the show that work with Cedar and Leah at their studio, like Megan Stilgess works there, as well as Kelsey Fernkoff, both spend time at the studio.
Yeah, let's take a look at Megan's piece.
Right on. I love this work. And this show is a great opportunity to come in and like see how different artists deal with a lot of the same issues when working with neon. Like, how's it going to be mounted? Like we saw on Cedar and Leah's piece, they mounted it directly to the wall, whereas Megan's come up with this this beautiful structure to mount everything on. This is entitled Neon Wallpaper Number 1. And Megan's incredibly skilled at sculpting realistic objects in furnace glass, and came to neon maybe 4 years ago, about
something like that. Yeah.
And worked with Jeremy as a student, and now comes and helps us out in our neon studio. And her skill set is just incredible to watch it develop so quickly. She's got a great work ethic, and is somebody people really enjoy working with. I work with Megan often when I'm in the furnace studio, and I just love how Megan's making work that creates positive conversations. She has humor here, but she's also working with neon and glass conceptually and inviting conversations around human sexuality that can be positive, productive, and really taking the shame out of conversations around sexuality, which I really appreciate. And that's something that you don't really often see in glass, beyond, you know, something just really looking beautiful and being technically incredible, that she's able to create work that can have really productive conversations with people. So I enjoy traveling with Megan and working with her and hearing her talk about her work. She might be on the call. I don't want any pressure.
I think she
on her.
is on the call. And we'll bug Megan later to tell us more about the piece. But I have to say, this piece is really fun to have in the gallery, and it sparks so many like audible conversations in the space. People have a lot to say about it, and it's generally really positive and wonderful, you know. And it definitely gets the conversation going, which I always applaud in an artist's work.
I love the idea of it being wallpaper too. Like I can imagine a whole room of this pattern. It's so really exciting. This is the first piece that Megan made in this style, so I'm excited to see where it goes next.
Should we turn a little and look at Fred's piece?
Sure.
So you guys have a long relationship with Fred.
Yeah, Fred it was my first teacher at Alfred in the early 90s of neon. We think of him as the Johnny Appleseed of neon because he has introduced so many people to the material over the years.
Yeah, he established the first neon shop at Pilcheck Glass School. Dale Chihuly requested that he come up and establish it. And also University Madison, he established that neon shop as well. He's a wise man that always has great wisdom to impart. And that's where Jeremy and I met at Alfred University. Jeremy was studying neon and clay, and I was doing glass and metal sculpture. And these pieces were made at the time period that we were attending Alfred in the 90s. I believe this one might be from 93. And they really reveal themselves photographically. I mean, they are very interesting to look at what you're seeing. They're kinetic, and Fred also introduced kinetic sculpture to Alfred. So they had a kinetic, I don't know if it's still active, but they had a kinetic program while we were there. And some of his earlier work was experimental and doing open shutter photography, and his piece of mounting a mast on top of, I think it was an Impala in the salt flats, in the Bonneville salt flats, and driving it around and creating work in that way. It was so inspirational for both of us as makers to look at work, making work conceptually with this medium. And some of this series has shapes that are actually shaped like vessels. And so they really become vessels of light when you take a photograph with open shutter photography.
So what he's doing is he's creating volume without materials. If you take a picture with open shutter, you see the piece how it's intended to be seen, and so yeah, it's just really inspirational work. And it was fun, the realization when we were talking to Fred while we were putting this show up. We were like, well, what kind of price should we put on the piece? And he's like, I have never sold a work of art ever. And to me, that was just like amazing. It was like this man who's like been making art for so many years and introduced so many people. He's not motivated to sell it. He's just fascinated with the phenomenon, you know, and with sharing the ideas that are possible with the material.
That's really cool. You know, you said something, Jeremy, that I think actually really kind of connects to Kelsey's piece in a nice way. It's like creating volume with just the light itself.
Mhm.
I think Kelsey does that in a really interesting way in terms of like using the gradient of the glow of the neon to kind of create a sense of a three-dimensional shape, as
Yeah.
though there's like that shadow and highlight in there.
Yeah.
I really love this gallery shot because, like we just said, both of these pieces are really dealing with volume in that way. And I think, you know, what you just said about the neon creating that shading to give you the impression of volume in Kelsey's piece is is really an incredible way to use the material. And I think that sort of emulates what I was talking about that he arrived at this from years and years of working with this material. I think that piece would be very hard for somebody else who's working under the designer to plan that out. I think that piece in particular really emulates his experience with the material to be able to utilize it in that way to so successfully.
Yeah, yeah, it's this piece is incredibly technically like amazing. It's all one tube, and to make and it's a really fat 18 millimeter diameter glass, and it's just perfectly bent. Kelsey is just a master bender, and so there's this technical aspect to this work that is just amazing, but this piece can be appreciated without all that. I mean, the form and the aesthetics that he arrives at are so beautiful that you don't really have to know about the crazy technical ability that he possesses to be able to make a piece like this, to appreciate it. It's also just a beautiful shape and form. We've been trying to like pinpoint what the aesthetic is, and it seems like maybe related to text or maybe related to scientific glass work like beakers and stuff, but just a really interesting aesthetic that he possesses.
I feel like there's a timelessness to it. Like it does feel like it could be retro, but it also feels really contemporary, like something brand new. And I really like that about that piece.
Yeah, I love the sort of very abstract reference to the sort of letter form. There's like a graphic
Yeah,
reference there without being at all specific. You know, it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
if you folded that piece that's on the backside the other way, would it be a letter? No, not exactly, but it's kind of playing with that idea of like the neon letter form.
Yeah.
Kelsey is an incredible technician, as we can see, and he works at several of the sign shops. He's sort of the hired gun. If you have something really difficult to make, he's probably going to be the guy. He's probably one of the best vendors here in the Northwest. And he's been really fun to follow on social media lately because he's been pumping out quite a bit of this large scale work and then installing it in the middle of a road. He's over in Ballard. What's the name of that shop that he works?
City Lights.
City Lights is one of the neon shops he works out of, and he goes outside at night
early in the morning,
and we'll plop it in the middle of the road, and it's been such a ghost town that he's able to get these really interesting photographs of the work out in
it's really great that he's still engaged in the material, because there's this weird thing that happens when you develop the amount of skill that he's developed out after hours and hours and countless hours. Bending glass can sometimes burn a person out, and he has gone up and down through the years that as I've known him with his interest in the material. But these days he's just on fire, and it's really great to see somebody who has that much experience and that much skill still playing with the material.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of playing with the material, so there's a funny story about these Dick Marquis pieces. Do you guys want to tell that story?
Yeah.
About how they're in the book?
Yeah.
They're in they're in one of his
Tina
books.
Oldknow's book. Yeah.
About Dick's work. And he said that he was just in '84 when he made these pieces, he was just beginning to develop a name for himself, and he was getting shows and things were going great. And then he made these pieces, and shows got canceled, and
Balls were dropped.
and so, but what he was doing is he didn't want to be pigeonholed into being a certain kind of glass artist, and this was his way of saying, I can do whatever I want because I'm the artist and I'm control of my work. And so that's how these pieces came about. He quickly stopped making them.
They're rare.
Yeah. And they sat around for forever. And then we went out to his place, and they were in various states of disrepair. And he's like, here, take these things, fix them up. And they had just been such a fun part of this show. Really, really great pieces, in the end.
And seeing them in this context, I think you can just see them in a totally different light. I was just at the show earlier today with Tina Ofiero, and we had a really interesting discussion about these works. In that, like, glass has gone back and forth, the glass movement. And when I first showed up in Seattle, there was this real sort of like wanting to embrace technique and do things really well with the material. Like everybody wanted to make really beautiful Vanini work. And artists like Dick Thurman, Paul Marioni, Dick Weiss and Cappy, they've all been dedicated, and Tina Ofiero herself, they've been dedicated right from the start, from being artists using the material. And Dick himself got so proficient at these very high techniques of Marini making and complex cane making that it was easy for people to really want to continue seeing that kind of work for him. So, I mean, these are pretty emotive pieces for me, and really inspiring of like taking that ownership. Like when we look at the studio glass movement and Harvey Littleton, like early studio movement glass, it was so blobby and from the furnace. And I think that's really incredible that he saw that and knew that was special, using the material like that, because before it had been very much a craft material and functional material. And then Littleton changing that trajectory. But then I think there was almost the pendulum swung the other way, where I feel like Americans really had to prove themselves that they were super proficient in the material and that we could do technique. And I think I was sort of experiencing like the tail end of that. But then all of a sudden now, like, I just feel like more free in the material than ever before, that like there's so much potential that anything can happen. And I feel like these pieces really represent that stand, that like this material is an art material and it does have endless possibilities. So they're really special pieces to me and continue to inspire. And I love that when you're coming to the gallery, you're greeted with this just sunshiny face, and I think it is a space of great light and really fun to inhabit right now. Nice shot, Deb. And so he really carved this out. He spent a lot of time, I don't know what his technique was, like actually cutting holes in the glass.
Yeah.
And then he just went back over and smeared paint on top of it. So I appreciate that freedom that he was showing as a maker. And
one of the things that I've really enjoyed about these pieces being in the center of the space is how the glass itself reflects everything. I mean, it reflects the neon that's right on top of it, which I'm sure was intentional, but now that they're installed in a room full of neon, they also reflect everything else that's in that space in such a beautiful way. So like each one of these pieces, you can see every other piece in the room.
Yeah, they're really dynamic. And if you could close up on that tube support, Deb, I was talking about earlier that, each of the neon artists have a different way of how to present your work. And Dick came up with a really great way of a tube support. Normally that's a glass insulated support to hold the neon, and he just went ahead and used dice, but it's so well done. It's drilled out just perfectly, and it shows that he has a dedication to quality as a maker, and at the same time having fun and being creative.
Yeah, let's take a
Because we all
spin
have
here.
to, neon, you still have to deal with the same thing. There's always going to be a power transformer on it. You could put the transformer right there, visible, or you could be creative and hide it. And Dick put it right inside the base there of each head. There's a neon transformer in there, and pulled it out for the wiring.
Let's spin around and take a look at Sarah's piece here.
All right.
This is another piece that I think works so well in the space. It's such a dynamic piece. It has all of these reflective qualities, and it's a little, the camera is making it feel a lot lighter over here than it does in real life. But
oh, this piece offers some great opportunities on perspective and creating these mysterious spaces.
wow,
And
look at that shot. That's really cool.
the piece is entitled Echo, and you know, just looking at the materials list on this one is convex surveillance mirror, VHS tape, glass, and argon mercury. And it's just so fun to see that she's using the whole elk theory and using whatever she can to make her work. And I really became excited about Sarah's work a few years back when she taught at Pilchuck, and I was noticing the incredible quality of work that were coming out of her classes. And I'm just so impressed with her work and the dedication she has as an educator and passing that on to the next generation. And it's just such a unique way to work with the material.
That's kind of her trademark thing, is to think outside of the box with materials and and just really stretch our understanding of materials and what the potential is.
I can't think of a better artist to take over that program at Alfred from Fred. She's now, she teaches the neon program at Alfred University. So it definitely feels true to what Alfred's putting out there.
Yeah, it does.
And I love how it almost seeming like Sarah's talked about, like stretching light in her work. And I think this piece is really interesting to look at in those terms. It's interesting the way the video
really
is
looks,
captured.
The video is really trippy.
Nothing like it does in real life right now. It's crazy.
For folks who are not here in person, those black lines are in fact continuous. Like, they don't,
yeah,
it just disappears in the middle. It's like,
whoa. And this also reflects the other work in the gallery so nicely.
Really beautiful.
So I just want to be a little bit conscious of time here. We have seen most of the work in the show. Let's do a little spin here. Here's Brian's piece.
Brian went to Alfred University with us. He was a fellow student of Fred Cheetah's, and like I mentioned earlier, Fred taught a kinetic sculpture class, which Brian really embraced. And this is one of the only two pieces, I think Leah and Cedar's piece also have a switch that's turning the neon on and off. And there's a whole myriad of things that you can do hooking up with computers and different controllers to animate neon. And Brian sort of went down that road with his piece. He's a great fabricator. He works over at Pratt Fine Arts Center in their sculpture studio. And the base is, it's powder coated aluminum that's been English wheeled and formed and then welded together and then powder coated. And he also fabricated the pyramid on top. And it was really fun to see him in his process. He'd come over to the house and work all through the night, hours and on end, just continually free-forming, bending the word love. And what a fun practice that is, focus and great positive messaging to put out there.
Totally.
Brian's one of those people that helps other people make their work. So it's really great for me to see people who finally get the chance to do something on their own in their own creative practice.
So you guys, thank you for this awesome tour. I think unless you want to focus on anything else, I think we should invite everybody to turn their videos back on and enjoy being in community with each other and answer some questions. Does that sound good?
Maybe
Okay.
take a look at the small pieces out front.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Let's go out front. And everybody who's on video, come join us.
And
I'll
right
turn
here
the
we have a
spotlight.
piece by Amy Lemaire.
Oh yeah, this is a wonderful piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a beautiful piece. Jeremy and I met Amy over at Urban Glass when we were teaching, and she's in the studio. She has a really dedicated studio practice. She's in there every day, and Amy's an incredible flame worker and is well versed in scientific glass blowing. And I probably first learned about her through her jewelry work, and jewelry isn't really appropriate. I don't feel like I have the words, but it's like wearable sculpture. If you see it just laying there, it looks like a beautiful sculpture, and then you can wear it and it looks comfortable. And I just love how creative and inventive she is. And she also uses a similar color palette to us in the hot shop, because she will use soft glass at times to make some of her beads. And what's really interesting about this piece is that Amy embraces technology, and she used 3D printing to create the base, and that's where the transformer is hidden. So instead of putting the transformer right out there for everybody to see, it's not just hidden, but it's actually now a really beautiful element of the work sculpturally. So I love what Amy's doing, embracing technology and her creativity. She uses borosilicate and has also used it making blow molds of different seed objects, and just really creative force of nature. We really had a great studio visit.
Yeah.
There's this whole other way of working with light and neon. It's called plasma work, and Amy's been embracing that work, and it's really exciting to see this whole new generation and the style of work that's coming out of Urban Glass.
Mm-hmm.
Is really fun for us to see and get inspired by.
Mm-hmm.
All right, I'm going to cancel the video spotlight so we can all see each other.
Okay, great.
And if you go back to gallery view, you should be able to see everyone, or you can go to speaker view and see whoever's speaking. And I would just love to know if anybody here has any questions or any thoughts that they'd like to share with the group.
Wow, so fun to see everybody.
I know it is. It's awesome to see everybody.
It really helps, since we didn't have an in-person opening, to see so many people making time in their schedules to come and check this out. It really means a lot.
It's an awesome show.
All of these artists just really embraced it. You know, it wasn't an easy time to make large-scale work and to ship large-scale work around. So I'm just so grateful for this extraordinary effort from all of the artists that participated.
Awesome. You guys did a great job. Jen and Jeremy, you always rock. I have your work here. It's in my front porch, and I can see it as I'm coming down the hill and around the corner. My R and my S. Remember that show you had many years ago? What year was that?
2012.
Was it?
Yep.
Yeah. Really great. And Jeremy, I have a question for you. In your circle of life, whatever the name of that piece is, it looks like, what is it called?
Unity circles.
Oh, okay, good. It looks like you've joined each section, so I'm assuming it's one kind of gas through the whole thing, and the tubes are colored. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a continuous tube, and inside that tube is a partial vacuum atmosphere, which is a conductive medium that conducts the electricity from one end of the tube to the other. So it's a continuous tube that's just segmented with different colors of tubing.
Wow. So
Yeah.
what kind of gas is in there?
It's argon mercury. The
Mhm.
color, that blue dominant color is from the mercury in the tube,
Oh.
unfortunately.
Were you safe?
Yeah, you know, it's one little dirty aspect of the material is that we often use mercury, but if we handle it carefully, it's not a problem.
Most LED has mercury in it as well, right?
I'm not sure about that, but I know that power plants spew mercury into the atmosphere measured by the tons, and so
I don't want to know this.
yeah, so
It's pretty microscopic.
we just have to be super careful. It's one of the reasons why a lot of times neon can't be fixed. It has to be made new, because if there's mercury in there, you can't hook back into it and manipulate it, and you can't process it when it has the mercury in it. So that's one little.
But that being said, not
thing
every
about it.
not every tube has mercury in it. That's only with argon. With just plain neon gas, there's no mercury.
Yeah,
in
like
it.
the red of Fred's piece and of Kelsey's piece, that is neon gas. We call it all neon, but only the red is actually filled with neon gas. Actually, about 80% of the neon out there is filled with argon mercury gas.
Interesting. Thank you.
Yeah.
Barbara, are you still on here, Wortley?
You got Richard here. I'm still here.
Hi, Richard, wherever you are. Did you guys see it in person?
Yes, we sure did. Great show. Thanks very much. And Sarah, thanks for putting it on. Susan, you too. And J, Jeremy and Jen, fabulous work. Just wonderful
Thank you,
imagination
Richard.
you have.
I'm so glad you got to see it.
Yep.
Yeah.
There's so much happening in neon, and this show really just scratches the surface. We're so excited when we get to travel and teach, and we learn so much from our students. We learn so much from each facility we go to. Right now, we would actually be teaching a fall concentration at Penland, who has a great neon setup there. We're scheduled. It got postponed this year, and it's going to be next year. We'll be doing a fall intensive, which is an 8-week workshop with neon and glass. So we're always so grateful when we get to travel and share our passion with the material. And we're still experimenting and learning and seeing what that relationship between glass and neon is. So we're always so grateful to all of the artists here in the show have all inspired us in many ways. And so we have a lot of gratitude for everybody that participated and all the places that we get to go and teach. And we always learn everywhere we go.
I mean, I really feel like I've learned a huge amount about neon in the last month. I have a whole new appreciation. I've always loved it. It's been something I've been drawn to, but it's not something I've lived with for any period of time. And just being in the space here and being able to spend time with it, you see so many different qualities to it and start to recognize, you know, well, I mean, one of the things I've recognized is how much it's in our environment, how much we live with it on a daily basis. And I bring a whole new appreciation to that sort of daily experience with neon, having spent time with these really creative expressions in the material, and recognizing that it is all handmade and artist made work, whether it's a Coors sign or a really cool local bar signage, or, you know, Jeremy's piece here in the gallery. Like, it's the same technique. And it's been really eye-opening. I've really appreciated it. And also learning, you know, about the different qualities of light that you see, and like how different that is from like the LED signage that you see everywhere these days. It has a really different characteristic to it. And it's something that I'm so grateful that artists are continuing to pursue and develop. as a technique and not just letting it kind of die out.
Yeah.
I appreciate that because right now on social media, a lot of sign shops are talking about that, just that right now, and showing, you know, what a side-by-side of a neon heart and an LED heart look. And there definitely is a different light quality. People might be shying away from it because neon's high voltage. It's more expensive because it's handmade, but you really can't get that same quality. They just aren't there yet with LED. And so if we're looking at signage out there, oftentimes if I see a new restaurant has gone through the trouble of doing a handmade neon sign, or if they have gold leafing signage on their window, I know that they're starting out right from the start of really caring about quality. And that really says something to me right away. If they're going to spend that kind of money, that they're expecting to stick around and that they're dedicated to representing themselves the best way they can through a quality sign. And that's one of the fun things that I've learned from being married to Jeremy and his dedication to sign work. He's always pointing signs out to me. And sure, you could get away with a pretty decent LED sign now, but it's just not the same.
Anybody else have any questions?
I do.
Yeah, Nancy.
Hey, Jen, I hear you're going to be having an exhibition at the gallery coming up. And do we look forward to seeing some neon in that show?
Thanks, Nancy. I appreciate that. I am. I'm scheduled to have a show in May at Traver. I'm really excited about it. It's going to be a solo show. That being said, you know, Jeremy and I really work together on each other's projects on almost everything. But if it's a solo show, it's going to be mostly designed by me. But Jeremy will probably
Made by me, designed by me.
And I am a hot shop artist, but I haven't had a lot of access to the hot shop lately. So I have been designing a lot of neon work. We have a neon shop here, so it's very accessible to me. And my inspiration point for this next body of work is called Native Species. And I want to represent native to the Pacific Northwest flora and fauna. And so the first few pieces are some birds. We started with some woodpeckers. And then I'm going to move into mushrooms and ferns and try to use the signage towards a very different method, towards representing the beautiful wilderness that we have all around us here in the Pacific Northwest. And why not use signage and that construct to represent our natural world, which I really love and value being around. So it's a fun series, and Nancy's already signed up for our first flicker that we made. So we're going to be installing that at Nancy's studio coming up here in the next few weeks.
I'm so looking forward to it.
That's awesome.
Just going to see the show in person was, it was like medicine, you know, having that glow of light, presence, like it's just, neon is something that everyone should live with. Because it adds so much to your day, and
Depth. Yep.
Hey,
Jen, are you doing your ceramics during this pandemic?
Not as much, but it is good. We are starting to get going on that again. We had sort of two bodies of work that Jeremy was choosing between for this show, and we have this whole other series that we prepared for him that we didn't show, and that is using a lot of extruded pieces of terracotta clay to house the transformer and the wires, and the neon will be coming out of the different orifices of these extruded forms. And that's a really totally exciting different direction that we're going that we haven't really shown yet.
Cool.
Yeah. But I'm going to try to get a big push of cups going for Vetri. It's my next move.
yay!
Yes, please. We would
I
love that.
mine.
I still have some Jen and Jeremy little round bowls from, I think, when you guys were showing those at Gather down in Columbia City.
Oh, right on.
Me too. And my cone-shaped cup I drink my espresso out of that
Oh,
has
good.
the yellow and blue pattern on it. Do you have one of those, Sarah?
I love that.
I don't have one of those. I missed that.
I love that part of making functional work, that it can live with people daily. I really love that. And
Well, I bet
the other thing
you.
we're working on is these.
Nice.
These are going to be a little wearable necklace that illuminates, similar
Oh my
to
gosh.
Jeremy made in the past. And we just had these made, and this is like a channel letter is what we'd call this in the signage industry. And these are omnipresent. These are on, like, every strip mall has a channel letter, and you can have them made. Sorry. And this will get filled with LED, and it'll be rechargeable, so you can wear it. I was thinking of making a purse out of them, the really small ones.
Yes, that's excellent.
That's
I think we all
awesome.
want one of those.
Yeah, me too. I want it. So those are really fun. And those are like the fun connections that we have from Jeremy's experience in the signage industry, that he still knows people that manufacture these things, and going to their shop and saying hi to the people in your neighborhood.
I love how you guys really embrace and kind of highlight the crossover between industry and art, and how there is a lot of connection between those worlds so often. Thanks for doing that. I think
Yeah,
that's an important thing to kind of keep in the conversation. There's so many artists who also, you know, are keeping those sort of industrial things alive as well, and doing
Definitely.
these crafts.
Artists helping other artists make their work.
Mhm.
I was so blown away. For a while, I was doing some contract work over at Chihuly Mockup. And that is just like this amazing secret giant art making factory full of working artists. So many of the artists that work there are practicing artists in their own right, incredibly talented. Every day I went to work there, I learned something new. And like I was saying, like the gratitude, you're probably sick of me saying how grateful I am, but I live that gratitude and feel that when I get to go to work with pros, that like the people that worked over at Mockup that I got to work with. Just an incredible group of hardworking people.
Well, we
And
were
I'm
lucky
seeing
to
them on
have
the
you.
camera right now, like the people from the Museum of Glass that are here, Sarah and Ben, and so many of the places that helped us make our work. Like, we would probably never have had a show if it wasn't for the Museum of Glass in Tacoma, and the amount of residencies that they've given me over the years to make experimental work is just a vital pipeline that I just really don't think I could have accomplished a lot of the conceptual work I was making without that. So the gratitude is real.
Well, you guys, it's exactly 6 o'clock, and I know folks have dinner plans and other evening plans, but thank you all so much for joining us. This was a really special evening, and it's so fun to see you all. And Jen and Jeremy, thank you guys for giving us such a wonderful tour of your beautiful exhibition. It's been so special to have it here in the gallery.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Have a nice night, everyone.
Bye.
Thanks, you guys. I miss everybody.
Bye.
Bye.
And Sarah.
Go vote.
Vote.
Done.
Yeah.
I did it.